All right. I think we're going.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm still new at this whole live the way they do it now is a little bit different. So we are here. I think we're live. Yes. Yay, exciting.
Yeah, in the words of Jim Ross, we're live, pal.
Yes, that's right. So, yes, we're really excited. We did a live stream last month, and we thought it would be fun to make that our monthly thing. So, we are here to take your questions, and we are here to talk about what we've been watching and just to have a fun time. A nice way to use up a Saturday. So, we have the chat room open, and so please, let us know your thoughts in the chat, what we're talking about, and it'll be really fun. So, Ryan, how have you been?
Oh well, it's been a lot of ups and downs. I mean, that's kind of what you have to expect with everything going on in the world right now. But I'm just trying to be like Alan Watts, just like flowing through the universe and just letting it come to me as it is, and I just react to it from there.
Yeah, I mean, we're living in a pandemic, so we have to find the good, find the positive, do the best that we can to get through it all together. So it's certainly a crazy time like no other, and so we've all certainly experienced that. I did get to go this last week to a new movie in the movie theater. So that was pretty exciting.
That was The Rental, right?
Yes. So I went and saw The Rental. I have my review at Backseat Directors, which you can read if you want. I met up with Sean and Andre from Backseat Directors, and that was really fun to get to see them. And overall, it was a very positive experience. The only thing that was concerning was that they had somebody sit right in front of me, and I don't think that they would have allowed that. I with this way that they're doing the spacing, I think they sat where they weren't supposed to sit. And so anyway, I moved over to the end of the row so that I made sure I had plenty of space, and I had my mask on, and it was very safe. And so, yeah, I think if you are careful about it and you use your head, I think that you can do these things in a safe way, but everybody has to decide for themselves. I felt safe. And the movie was a mixed bag. I thought it had a lot of style to the direction. It certainly looked nice. It had a very talented cast. You did get the feeling a little bit that maybe some favors were called in, because it seemed like, how did he get this level of cast, for this movie? But the ending was what really didn't work for me with this movie. I don't know. I don't want to give any spoilers, obviously, but it didn't really work for me. The last act of the way everything kind of concludes didn't really work for me. But it shows some potential, I think, for him as a director.
This was directed by Dave Franco, and the entire time when I was reading the synopsis, I was like, this is the same guy who was Greg Sestero in The Disaster Artist. Now he's a director. Like,
right.
That just sounds weird.
Yeah. Yeah. And I thought he did a good job as far as tone and atmosphere. But he just needs to work on that script. In my opinion. But yeah, I would definitely see something else that he did, because I think there's potential in there. What have you been able to watch anything recently? Anything new?
Haven't seen a ton of new stuff. I've just been down like an AFI list, like rabbit hole, so to speak, for my series. So I really haven't had the chance to. Plus, the closest drive-in theater to me is only playing like older shows, which I still haven't had the chance to get to yet, because I've had stuff I've had to catch up on for a lot of the content over on my channel. So it's just a matter of time, but I'll get there eventually.
Yeah. And there's been some new stuff with streaming since we last spoke. Of course, there was Greyhound on Apple Plus, which was a solid little movie from Tom Hanks. Nice, just an hour and a half, which is so exciting. But I really think it was actually very key to making the movie work because it just clipped along and didn't have sort of, I think if it had been 2 hours long, I think it would have been sort of insufferable. It's very sincere and old fashioned. And I think you needed it to have that 90 minutes. So that was smart on the part of them for Greyhound. I also really, really enjoyed the movie Relic, which is a horror movie. Normally I'm not that big into horror, but I thought it was so well done. And it kind of dives into the idea of sort of dementia and how like when one of our loved ones has dementia, it feels like they're almost a different person. And it can be kind of scary, like they can't remember you, they can't, it kind of taps into that fear. And I thought it did a really, really good job. It's probably my favorite thing that I watched. But what have you been watching on as far as the AFI?
Well, just the other day, I watched The Bridge on the River Kwai from director David Lean, who directed Lawrence of Arabia, one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, me too.
I don't think Kwai is as good as Lawrence of Arabia, but at the same time, it's like trying to it's like when someone made like Citizen Kane, it's like trying to replicate that. You can only you're automatically at a step down. But I think what I appreciated about Kwai was that David Lean took the style that he took from Lawrence, in that there's no true good guy or true bad guy. It's just here's the situation, and they had to work with what they had. It's divided into two halves. The first half is the British in the POW camp run by the Japanese. And Alec Guinness's character, by the way, he won an Oscar for this, very well deserved. He is going up to the commandant like every day, and he's like, "Listen, sir, you are abusing the Geneva Convention, and officers do not work." And the Japanese officer's like, "Yeah, forget your Geneva Convention, you're working." And Guinness stands his ground, and he gets thrown in the hot box for like 2 weeks, which is just this stainless steel box with some wood, and it's like Florida in July in there, but you never leave. It's like the worst thing you could ever imagine. And then the second half is kind of turns into a more of a typical war movie, kind of like a spy movie. It's like, okay, the bridge is built, now we have the mission to tear it down. But without giving too much away, there's more nuance to it than that. It's along the lines of, okay, now the bridge is built, at least something good came out of it, and that in the future when people cross the bridge, they'll be like, okay, in these dark times, something good came out of it. But the question is, it's the circumstance of how the bridge was built, and should we destroy it or should we keep it up? I'm not doing it justice. You really should go see the movie if it happened.
No. Yeah, I mean, David Lean is such an incredible director. I mean, such a range of movies that he did. Something small like Brief Encounter to to these incredible epic movies like Lawrence of Arabia, Bridge of the River Kwai. He really is one of my all-time favorites for sure.
Yeah, no one really directs like Lean does nowadays. Maybe Denis Villeneuve, but that's debatable at best. Lean he combined beautiful like visuals and cinematography with just great storytelling. Like there's so many scenes in Lawrence of Arabia where there's almost no dialogue, and yet the story just spills onto the screen. And you can make the argument that had a lot to do with Peter O'Toole in Lawrence of Arabia, or Alec Guinness in on the River Kwai. Alec Guinness was in both, but you have to differentiate. But Lean was such a master of just presenting the layout as it is and letting us, the viewer, kind of put two and two together to get four.
Yeah, I mean, and then Dr. Zhivago, which is so atmospheric, such just the sense of cold and the sense of that's probably my least favorite of his, but still just the run that he had of Brief Encounter, Lawrence of Arabia, Great Expectations, Bridge on the River Kwai, Dr. Zhivago, Oliver Twist, like is a really amazing run.
Yeah,
And
it's
again,
like it sounds like Spielberg in the 90s.
yeah. Yeah. So cool. Well, that sounds fun. I love that you're getting a chance to dive into these classics. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and it's been a great opportunity for me to watch a lot of movies that I'd always been meaning to watch, but I have so much time on my hands now. It's like, well, I have
Yeah.
no excuse now.
Love it.
And what I've been able to find is that I haven't totally loved every single one of them. At first, I
Sure.
was like, am I wrong for feeling that way? But at the same time, I guess it's nice to know that when everyone says, "Oh, movies were so much better back in the day,"
Yeah.
that's not entirely true.
And you
Like,
definitely don't have to love all the classics. Anyone who says that is being ridiculous. Everybody has ones that they don't love so much.
yeah, and without giving too much away, I just recently watched One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest for the AFI project, and
Ah.
without giving too much away, I wasn't a humongous fan of it
Hmm.
because, and I'll try and tap dance like as much as
Yeah.
possible, but the whole conceit of the movie is that Jack Nicholson's character is this big rabble rouser entering into this loony bin where all the patients are just beaten down and told to take their medicine, and their humanity is taken away from them by the
Hmm.
evil nurse. But in the context of the movie, the nurse is just trying to do her job, and she's
Hmm.
nice enough. She's stern,
Hmm.
and she doesn't play around, but at the same time, it's not like she's pulling like a warden from the Shawshank Redemption who is just a piece of garbage. You know, she's just trying to do her best in this situation.
Hmm. But
That
the movie is also being told from the inmate's point of view, and so she is going to be she's going to be viewed that way probably by them. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely I liked the movie. I didn't love it, so I can see definitely where you're coming from with that one. Definitely.
Amadeus is definitely Milos Forman's best movie. Like,
Oh,
if you
no
haven't
question.
seen Amadeus, like, do yourself a favor. The
Yeah.
extended cut is north of 3 hours long, but I promise to any one of you who have not seen Amadeus, it is absolutely worth it.
Yeah, and I actually think I might prefer the theatrical. But yeah, it's one of my favorite movies for sure. Is Amadeus is really great. Did you get a chance to watch Hamilton?
I saw clips, like I saw everything involving King George, and I've
Mhm.
seen the opening bits several times because I have several friends who are freelance actors, and they always share stuff with me of like opening of Hamilton. So I've seen the opening a ton of times, but from like cover to cover, I have not.
Yeah,
I've
watch it.
heard
Yeah.
nothing but great things about it. So
Yeah, I highly recommend it. I think it's really great, and they did a really good job with the staging of it, the way they use different shots to kind of make you feel close to the actors, and it's a different experience than seeing it live, and both good, and it's just such a creative, different take on history. I think you'll really enjoy it.
and of course there was an article, someone was like, "Oh, Hamilton glossed over the real life fact of the founding fathers were slave owners." I'm like, that's not the point. It's an
Yeah,
interpretation. And it's like, if you crack open any history book, you'll know the founding fathers were not exactly glamorous people, but what they did, paved the way for what we have today. So we should
yeah,
be grateful for that. Like,
right.
history's complicated. It's
Hmm.
not all sunshine and rainbows. Just read the book
Yeah.
Guns, Germs, and Steel if you want proof of that. But
Yeah, well, and I feel like that God uses weak people, imperfect people, to do great things, and I think that that's true for all of us in our lives, and I think it's true for the founding fathers. It's true for not absolving them of their flaws, but nevertheless, that doesn't. We still have their achievements and what they added, and so I agree with you there. We did have a comment. It's from the follower of the channel, Wimpy Studio. He says, "Hey guys, I just subbed to you on a Patreon on Patreon for the Animation Junkie level tier. So that's so exciting. Thank you so much for doing that. And if you want to subscribe, support the channel at that tier, what you get is you get to request what an animated film that Stanford and I will cover. Of course, has to be one that we have not yet covered. But other than that, pretty much, I'm not going to do Fritz the Cat or something X-rated or whatever. But so there's some limitations. But for the most part, any animated film that you recommend, Stanford and I will cover it. And you can even, depending on the situation, depending on how it works out, you can join us for that podcast, and that will be really fun. So thank you for supporting the podcast. That means a lot to us, and we will be in touch. And if anybody else is interested in that perk, please go on to Patreon. We have the link in the description, and you can support us, and that would be amazing. So
it's best that you don't go too far into Ralph Bakshi's filmography without a lot of preparation, because like before, like Trey Parker and Matt Stone were doing South Park, he was doing South Park. You know, there was this movie that I saw called Cool World. It was his last movie. Very bad, but the original idea for it was that he was going to make a hard R animated horror movie, and it was kind of going to be like a half cartoon, half human, going from the cartoon world to the real world and killing people, and that just sounds just pleasant. It really does.
So that's what I say. There's limits, but for the most part, we're here for you, and it's a great perk. And as well as other perks, we do live watch-alongs where we have talent from the movies that are there to get behind-the-scenes details. We've done that now 4 times. This, of course, with the Hallmark movies, because that's where I know talent, I guess. And so if you're just interested in the behind the scenes of goings on for a movie, I think you really enjoy it. This month, we are going to have the director of and writers of the Lifetime movie Twinkle All the Way. It's still being sort of arranged, but I loved Twinkle All the Way. I thought it was so sweet and so good. And so they are Brian Herzlinger and Megan Herzlinger are going to be coming and going to be giving us the behind the scenes as we watch along and watch Twinkle All the Way. So that will be really fun for August. And so we try to have a bunch of perks for the Patreon if people want to support us. So anyway, thank you for that. And so I think, did you have anything else from July that you wanted to cover that you've watched?
Well, I started watching Twin Peaks. That was been on my Netflix list for the longest time, and I'm about 3 episodes deep, and I'm really liking it so far. And I'm going to finish watching the rest because there are only 3 seasons, and then there's of course the movie Firewalk with me, but I'll get to that when I get to that. And so and I also am 1 movie away from watching pretty much all of the movies from the year 1980. I wanted to watch every movie from the 1980s, like decade, and I have just finished with the year of 1980. The final few movies were very different, to say the least. The first one was a movie called Tess. This was a French film directed by Roman Polanski, who is a human piece of crap, but that's neither here nor there.
This is wasn't nominated for Best Picture?
I believe it was. Yeah. My Oscar knowledge is kind of so you would probably know more than I would.
I think so. Yeah. Oh, so did you like it? Tess of the Dubervilles?
It was very slow, but I liked the acting and it was shot very well, so I could get through it just fine. But it was like, does this have a point? Like, the movie to me felt like a French version of Parasite, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah.
Because it deals with like people on like the poor end of the spectrum infiltrating the rich end of the spectrum and just getting out of hand from there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the novel that it's based on, so I can see that. It's such a tragic novel, but it's such a downer, and so Well, I that's one. I mean, I really hate Polanski. It's tough for me to watch his movies, but I do like the book, so I've wondered about it. But anyway, so another film that I lost my train of thought. Oh, I people might be interested that I finally saw Birds of Prey this
Oh,
month.
so let's prepare for all the Sonic fanboys
Woo!
coming in.
Yeah, and
So,
so
how'd you like it?
I thought it was okay. I'm not a huge fan of Harley Quinn as a character. I find her pretty grating, and this didn't really win me over to her as a character. But I thought the movie was directed with quite a bit of style and panache to it that to me made it better than something, say, like Suicide Squad. I thought it had a lot more just color and imagination, and I thought the action was much better than what you typically see with a lot of these superhero movies. So I enjoyed it on that level. It was definitely more violent than I typically like, it's just as far as this kind of film. Um, but and I would have liked to have seen way more of the other women side because I'm not that big of a Harley fan. But I thought it was fine. It was entertaining enough. It had enough style and energy about it. I thought it did keep its tone very well compared to something, like Shazam, which that was my big flaw with Shazam, is I felt like it was all over the place tonally. This I thought was more consistent. So I'd give it a mild recommendation. I feel like it wasn't all of that good of a story, and I didn't really. I don't know. It's hard when you're doing like a villain. It's hard when you're doing a villain origin story because it's just harder to root for a villain, that's but I don't know. I would probably give it like a 6 out of 10. I certainly enjoyed it more than other DC films, or other even Marvel films, but I didn't love it. So I don't know. Right? It's like a mild recommendation, I would say.
Yeah,
For
that sounds about right with me. I think I may like it just a tad more than you do, but at
Mhm.
the same time, like in my like inner head of like my DCEU ranking, it ranks like somewhere in the middle.
Mhm.
I like that they fixed a lot of the problems that I had with the first Suicide Squad movie, since this is like a loose sequel. They
Yeah.
cleaned up the color grading, immediate improvement there.
Mhm.
The action is far better filmed.
Yeah.
They do at least give or somewhat origin stories to all of the women, and I cared about all of them. So again, that was
Yeah.
another major plus. But to your point, Rachel, I wanted to see more of them, because if this was going to be the Harley Quinn movie, they should have said Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey, or just Harley Quinn. But
Yeah.
it was Birds of Prey, and it was like, Mary Elizabeth Winstead is right there, and she is awesome, and you are
Yeah.
wasting her. What is wrong with you?
Yeah, and I didn't really love the villain. I don't know. He was just kind of meh to me.
Yeah, I'm a big Ewan McGregor fan. I loved him in the prequels. He's been great in smaller movies like the Train Spotting movies, and
Mhm.
there was this one that came out like 2 years ago that nobody saw, where he was like he was married to Lily Collins, the girl from Labyrinth, Jennifer Connelly,
Oh, yeah.
and I can't remember its name at the second, but I saw it like 2 years ago, and I
Mhm.
do remember liking him in that. So I'm a big McGregor fan, but he started off as like, okay, I like this guy, but then by the end he just went full misogynist, and it was just like, it was a complete turnoff. And I
Yeah.
get where they were trying to go with the messaging. It's like the classic Roger Ebert quote: "I respect what they did, and I hate it."
Yeah, well, and people are like, "Oh, all the men are so terrible in the movie," but all the women are pretty. As far as I mean, they're all, many horrible crimes. They're all villains, and so, and also the movie is being told through Harley Quinn's perspective. So of course she's going to see them all this way. She's not, and she's in a bitter spot in her life, and with the a separation from the Joker. But I kind of wish that Harley had been like a bit smarter of a character. She seemed very, very, everything was done out of instinct, or out of, like, if she's a PhD, it would have been interesting to have seen her like create a plan, or to really like outsmart people. That would have been a kind of a cool way to kind of subvert expectations, because she has this high voice and she seems very childlike in certain ways. So if she'd been like really smart, surprisingly smart, I think that could have been a cool part of her character. But I felt like she was just very this angers me at this moment, I'm going to lash out. And then this angers me and I'm doing this. It was all out of emotion. And so I thought that made her character, I guess it was interesting in a way, but I think if she had been a little smarter, I think it would have added another layer to her character. But as it was, I thought the movie had enough style, the action was well done enough to give a very mild recommendation. Didn't love it, but I thought it was okay.
Yeah, everybody forgets that it takes like a full decade to become like a doctor in anything, but especially in Harley Quinn's case, like she had to like go even longer, like to like turn in a thesis and just do all of this super advanced stuff. And it was like they threw it completely away, and she was like, oh, she's a thing with the Joker, but not anymore. It's like you could do so much with that. Like when Batman the Animated Series, meant for kids, does more with Harley Quinn than the movie clearly meant for adults, you have messed something up there.
Well, Batman the Animated Series does everything better, but so that's a high bar.
That's true. That's very true.
In my experience. But anyway, I'm sure people will be all upset about that. Either the fact that I like it or the fact that I didn't like it. And I'm just
Lord knows we can't enjoy comic book movies anymore. You know, it's like this is a war, and our blood will draw the battle lines. It's like we can't just enjoy this stuff anymore.
Our friend, the Nerdy Brit, he says, I really liked Birds of Prey. Felt like a fresh perspective for the DCU. Yeah, that's I think what I tapped into, that I did enjoy the fresh energy, the style, the colors, the action. I thought it did have that was the appealing part to me, was that. So yeah, I agree. I agree with you. So
I'm just fascinated where they're going to go from here, because
I know.
Because it's like we had Justice League when it came out in 2017. It was not good, and then it was like in 2019.
We're basically getting 2 Batman movies next year, so it's like, how's that going to work? I don't know. The whole thing's going to be weird, but
and we're getting a prequel series on HBO Max from Matt Reeves. So
I forgot about that.
Matt Reeves, welcome to DC. We are giving you all the Batman. It's like
but we're making another one on the side. It's like Zack Snyder in the Snyder Cut is like the mistress on the side for DC.
You said you'd always love me.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. So, and I might share my thoughts on some of those things as far as in a live stream like this, but I'm not going to do reviews on YouTube for superhero movies, except for maybe Wonder Woman, because it's just too toxic. It's too much. I can't deal with it. So check out my blog for more of that, and we'll see. But anyway, it's fun to talk about it when people can be civil. So what I thought might be fun for the second half of this live stream is to go over a little Q&A. I found a little 27 questions movie tag. So we haven't prepared for this, so it's just off the cuff. So don't hold us to this. These answers, please.
It's like jazz, folks. We're improvising.
And if you have questions in the comments in the chat room, please let us know your questions. All right. First question. This is a tough one. What's your favorite action film?
Oh boy, how long you got? Well, is this going to be kind of objective or subjective?
It's just your opinion. So subjective. Yeah.
All right, then. Well, I think the absolute best and most perfect action movie ever made. Boy. I'm gonna have to go with Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
Like it kind of bleeds over into adventure too, but there's a ton of action in it, so it counts. And I've seen this movie so many times, I could pretty much recite it to you by mention, like just like I can tell you it all from the beginning. Like Paramount logo turns into the mountain, opening credits, South American jungle, 1936. I could go on and on and on, but just the movie is just done so well. It was made in 1981. It's better than like 90% of the action movies that we see today. It's got a lot of practical effects in there that still hold up tremendously well, especially some of the scarier moments, because wow, there's some chilling stuff. There's some chilling stuff in here, like when you see Forrestal's body, like just like all up in the chains, and you hear Alfred Molina screaming, and Indy's just standing there like, Forrestal, and you're just like. And this movie made me afraid of snakes. So it's like, I can't go near a snake without just being, somebody kill this thing right now. Kill it.
Yeah, that's a really good choice. That probably would have been my choice if you hadn't said it. The stunts are second to none in there.
Yeah, they were all inspired by like old silent movies. I think the famous one where Indy climbs under the truck and uses his whip to go back out and then back on was inspired by, I think it was a movie like The Last Train Robbery or like The Last Stagecoach, something named like that. It was, I heard it on a podcast somewhere, and it was I just thought it was so fascinating. But it's like The Last Stagecoach Robbery or something like that. But it was an old silent Western that it was inspired by.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. So I love that movie. I think that's a great choice. I think that if I was thinking of the best action movie, there's been a lot of really great martial arts movies. And one thing I thought of The Matrix, which is martial arts inspired. That had some great action and changed everything. But one that I love is actually the first Ip Man. I think that the action is so incredible in that movie. It's pretty violent, heads up, but it is really beautiful, well done, stunning martial arts action. Have you seen it? You've got to see it, man.
I think I saw it like 4 or 5 years ago. It was on Netflix, and I specifically remember watching it. It was like no, it was 4 years ago, because Donnie Yen, the star of the Ip Man series, was Chirrup Itway in Rogue One. He was the blind force sensitive guy, and he had the line of the strongest stars have hearts of Kyber, and I was like, this guy's cool. I wonder what he's been in. And then I discovered the first Ip Man, and I haven't seen the rest of them, but I have seen the first one.
And there's just some incredible scenes. There's this great scene where he basically takes down an entire room of
knowing Donnie Yen, that's probably possible.
Yeah, and it feels like visceral and real, and it's really good. And all the fights, like you feel the hits, you feel that it is choreographed, obviously, but it doesn't feel choreographed. So it's excellent. I mean, there's so many other great martial arts films, from your Bruce Lee's, your Jackie Chan's, your so many iconic people over the years. And the Nerdy Brit, he says, this might be a dull answer, but Terminator 2, tension mixed with excitement is to perfection.
That's a very good choice there, Nerdy Brit. I don't know your first name, so I'm just gonna have to call you. Nerdy Brit, but that is an amazing choice.
I think a lot of people probably have Die Hard on here.
Die Hard's another good one.
Really good action movie. Yeah, I love Point Break. That's one of my favorites.
It wasn't about us, man. It was about us against the system.
I love the No Man's Land scene in Wonder Woman. That's one of my favorite sequences.
One of my favorite Jackie Chan movies is a little known one. You may have never heard of it. I know how to speak. It's called Jackie Chan's Who Am I? It's about this soldier named Jackie Chan. How original. And he gets into this plane crash when he's involved in a mission that is like one of those crew expendable kind of things. And he loses all of his memory. And he slowly starts to like gain it all back. And it ends with one of the best action scenes that I've ever seen. It's just him and these two goons on this massive rooftop in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. And there are like no objects involved unless you count like Jackie Chan utilizing one of the dude's like ear piercings as a weapon. And Chan has this necklace that he forces up like a guy's nose.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that sounds good.
Outside of that, it's all just punches and kicks and blocks. And there's this one scene where Chan like ties up some guy in like a suit jacket and just like punches him 50 times in the face while he's tied up in a suit jacket. And it's like, remind me never to wear a suit jacket outside again.
Well, and you can feel the real like power of each that their bodies become a weapon, and it's powerful. So yeah, I actually haven't seen that one, so I'll have to check it out.
Not to mention the fact that Jackie Chan did pretty much everything himself, which added to everything.
Yeah, cool, good. All right, favorite comedy film. So for me, the best comedy ever made is Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I think
that's a great choice.
So hilarious to this day.
Let's not go to Camelot. It is a true place.
Yes, I love it. It's so funny. Some others that I love. Clueless is one of my all-time favorites. I love It's Mad World. There's lots of romantic comedies, obviously, that I love. What about you? What's your favorite?
A couple of my favorites are Liar Liar and Ace Ventura, both starring Jim Carrey. Like that was when Jim Carrey was in his prime, like the mid 90s, from like 94 to 97. That was peak Jim Carrey. Another one of my favorites, let's see. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. That's another one. It's got its dramatic moments, but it's a comedy at the heart of it all.
Home Alone, one of my all-time favorites. That's
another good one there.
And I also do love A Christmas Story. So we're going the holiday route. I think that movie's so funny. I know a lot of people don't like it, but we got some comments. Okay. This is Gosha Ozio says, are you guys fans of Siskel and Ebert? By the way, what are your favorite critics? Oh yeah, I was a huge Siskel and Ebert watcher growing up, and then Ebert and Roper's. It changed, even though I didn't watch a lot of the movies that they talked about, because they talked about a lot of rated R movies. I still just found them fascinating, and I still sometimes like to watch the old reviews. But Ryan, you're a youngin, so how have you been influenced at all by Siskel and Ebert program, or is that?
Oh yes, I have seen a lot of their old episodes on YouTube and other places. Like Ebert is the greatest of all time. Like there's no getting around it. Like I'll sometimes go on his website and I'll read up like old reviews of his, like for stuff like Blade Runner, or perhaps like The Graduate, which I did for my AFI project review, because I was like, I'm not sure if I like this. What did Ebert have to say? And he surprisingly gave it 4 stars when he first saw it. And then when it was re-released, he gave it 3 stars. So that showed that he was a man who was willing to change his mind considering, new information. And he did this a lot. When Blade Runner first came out, he gave it 3 stars. But when it was re-released, he gave it 4. Same thing with Jurassic Park. He gave it 3.5 when it initially released. And then he knocked it up to 4 when it got re-released in 2013. So I'm a big Ebert fan, especially when he gets angry, which was quite often. If any of you outside watching this now have never seen his review of North, do yourself a favor and watch it, because it is like I wish if I could bottle the energy that he gave, I could pretty much power like New York City, because he was so mad with reviewing that movie. And then at the end of the year, he gave us the classic line of my hands possessed me as I started typing out, I hated this movie. Hated, hated,
Yeah.
hated, hated, hated this movie. Hated it. Hated every single simpering, audience insulting moment of it. And it just like, yes.
Yes. Yeah. I disagreed with him a lot, but he had a way
Oh,
of
sure.
explaining himself in a way that made you, you got it. You're like, okay, I get it. I don't agree, but I get it. So yeah, I really admire him. Some others that I love, I love to read Pauline Kael. Back in the day, she was as far as female critics was a early trailblazer. There's a great documentary out right now called "What She Said: The Art of Pauline Kael" about her as a critic. I highly recommend it. It was really good. But Leonard Maltin, you can't go wrong with Leonard Maltin. He's a legend. Then I also love Alonso Duralde, who is a writer, a podcaster. I've actually become kind of friends with him because he's a big Hallmark fan. And so he's been on our show a couple times, and that's been amazing. I love Christy Lemire, who worked with Alonso on the breakfast. They have breakfast all day podcast. So I love her. And I also I love Matt Singer. His column, his reviews are always really good. And then William Bibiani is another favorite of mine. I think that William, what I admire about him, Bibbs, I guess is that he's totally open to anything. He'll watch a Hallmark movie. He'll watch a slasher movie. He'll watch a Christian movie, and he'll give everything his honest opinion. And he doesn't have like these biases or prejudice. Like he's up to watch anything, and he has things from every genre that he likes. And I think that's definitely something that I try to have, and I try to emulate, because I love that about him. Because a lot of people, it's like, oh, they hear Hallmark movie and they're like, ugh, and they won't even give it a shot, but he's totally open, which I appreciate.
Some of my favorites you actually did just mention. Christy Lemire. I'm sorry, I'm bad with names. She works over. She contributes to RogerEbert.com, and I like reading her stuff. Scott Mendelson over at Forbes. He's another good one. I actually, in my Artemis Fowl review, I took one of his tweets and I quoted it as saying, like, he was. Like he said in his review that this was one of the worst teen YA adaptations ever. I still disagree with that when Twilight, Divergent, and and M. Night Shyamalan's The Last Airbender also exist on this planet, but I do see where he's coming from. Whitney Seibold is another one that I like reading from time to time.
This podcast with Bibbs.
I was just going to mention that, yes, and Bibbs as well. And I kind of disagree with them more than I agree with them, but I still read them because I try my hardest to read people that I don't agree with, because they might often have something that I do agree with, and another point of view that I didn't consider before. Yeah. So I just try and keep myself in tune with that. And Matt Zoller Seitz is another one that I'd like to mention before.
Yeah, very good. Those are all, and I agree with you. I'm interested to hear what other people have to say. I really hated the movie The Glass Castle, and I had just a very strong reaction to it. I was very offended by it. And my friend Sean Chandler, who's a really fun YouTuber, he loved it. And I thought it was so interesting. Neither of us changed our opinions, but I think that we got to know each other better because of that experience and sharing. And so I think people should try to be more open, because if you're going to a critic hoping to have your opinion parroted back to you, which I think is what a lot of people want, then you're going to be disappointed most of the time. I mean, that's not what we're here for. We're not here to tell you what you love is great. We're here to we're here to share our opinions and try to justify it as best we can. But that's a great question. Thank you so much. So we have a couple more that come in. Aaron Johnson, he says, Die Hard is a fun movie. My favorite scene from the first Die Hard is the vault opening. This is a very exciting scene. Yeah. And because it has the Beethoven Ode to Joy music. Yeah. That's a great scene.
That's an underrated scene in that movie. Yeah. And the movie's stuffed to the gills with quality, like Gruber and Theo seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and then Theo's laugh afterwards as he's folding through like the unmarked bearer bonds, and he's like,
yeah.
I'm like, I need to bottle that joy and spray that on me sometime.
Aaron Johnson, he says, I tend to listen to a lot of reruns of Siskel and Ebert, especially from the older movies that are from the 80s and 90s. Me too. I mean, I would buy it in a heartbeat if they had a Siskel and Ebert on DVD. It's probably a licensing nightmare, but that would be so fun if they ever did that. But I love those old episodes. The Nerdy Brit, he says, the British choice have to go with Hot Fuzz, any of the Cornetto trilogy. So
let's throw in the entire Cornetto trilogy there. Nerdy Brit, you get me. You know, I don't know your first name, but you get me. Like the entire Cornetto trilogy, like even The World's End, and no one's really a humongous fan of The World's End. I'm a big fan of The World's End. Like I think I like that movie like sometimes, and in some cases even more than the other two. And the other two are excellent, but to me, they're like 1A, 1B, and 1C. They're all excellent.
Yeah. I should also say, I think Captain America Winter Soldier is a really fun action movie, and Civil War, I think, is pretty fun. So there's a lot of fun action movies out there. All right. So the next question, I guess maybe we should skip some of these because we're going very long. So this
time flies when you're having fun.
So favorite animated film,
I think I might as well use the bathroom because Rachel's gonna need a minute, or maybe let me take a second. It's Your Name.
Yes, that's my favorite. Is Your Name, because
I know these too well.
Such a good story, and I love the animation, and I love the characters, and I love the music, and I love the heart behind the whole thing, and I love the ending. And but I also love The Little Mermaid. And spoiler alert we just recorded our episode of Talking Disney last night with Untangled with Kristen Maldonado, who I also love, and we did the next pick for Talking Disney. It's gonna be The Little Mermaid. So we actually have 3 episodes. We'll have Sword in the Stone, which is next week, and then we'll have Tangled, and then the one after that is going to be The Little Mermaid. So I'm so excited.
It's going to be a good week over there.
Yes. Nerdy Brit says, I love The World's End. So he's with you. Yes.
My man, the Nerdy Brit.
Yeah. You need to come on the podcast, Nerdy Brit. I've been on his channel before, but talking Doctor Who. What about you? What's your favorite animated film?
Oh, well, that's a really good question. And this is something that I've been trying to like narrow down, like the more that I've thought about it, because the animation genre has become just so huge in like such like a small amount of time. So I think wow, it's really weird, but this is going to be a dark horse pick. I'm going to go with Treasure Planet as my favorite. It's a movie that I saw very young. I saw it at the right time, and I've just seen it more and more and more, and I think it's just gotten better. It's so good, and I'm sad to know that the movie didn't do so well for Disney, and they had to like it was just, I guess people just weren't ready for the whole steampunk Treasure Island genre thing. But that's my favorite. So
that's you can't go wrong. So all right, next question we have is favorite romance film.
This is going to take me a while.
I mean, it's hard because are you talking rom-coms? Are you talking drama? Are you talking what?
Or we could just collectively say The Princess Bride.
Oh, that's gonna be up there for me. No question.
Because
Um,
I'm gonna take it if you're not.
well, and then there's a lot of films that actually have romance, but it's not like, is it a romance film? Like Your Name, for instance, has romance in it. But probably my favorite, I love You've Got Mail from Nora Ephron. I love Shop Around the Corner, which it's based on as well. I just love the writing from Nora Ephron in that movie. I think it's so funny, and I love the characters, and I love their chemistry, and I love the whole idea of them finding love outside of who they think they are, and that ends up actually being who they are. There's something I think powerful about that, and I love just all the stuff about reading and Pride and Prejudice, and the whole monologue she does about going to Starbucks, and just all of that. I absolutely love. I love the cast. I love the whole. Greg Kinnear is hilarious, I think, in it. Parker Posey, when she's talking about when I get out of this elevator, I'm gonna have my eyes lasered. And I love the whole scene when they're getting when they're at the party, and she's like, you're taking all the caviar. And I don't know, it's a movie that I pretty much have memorized and could quote at that I just think it's so funny. That thank you. You need quiet while the hot dog is singing. So it's probably the most quotable movie in my opinion, and I love it. So that's one of my favorites. I also love Breakfast at Tiffany's. And then I would say It's a Wonderful Life, Sound and Music are probably, and then Clueless I love, and Juno I love. Those are probably my favorites.
Yeah, Juno's a good one. Like there's people who are like, "Oh, Juno's overrated." I watched it recently. It's still good. It's like the writing is still really spot on. I like the relationship between Ellen Page and Michael Cera. I think Michael Cera is very underrated, mostly because I'm a Scott Pilgrim fan. But
yeah, I mean, he plays kind of the same role in every role, but he does it well.
Yes.
Yeah, he does it well. He knows.
Kind of like Jesse Eisenberg.
Yeah, I love when she says, "You're like the coolest person I know, and you don't try at all." And he's like, "I try really hard, actually." It's such a good movie.
How she stuffs like 40,000 like boxes of orange Tic Tacs into his mailbox. And then when they see each other again, he's like, "Well, I'll never have to worry about buying those ever again."
Yeah. Well, and I think the Jennifer Garner character in there's a lot more to her. Like at the very beginning, Juno just completely like, you're stiff, you're boring, you're whatever. And then by the end of the movie, she really got to see that she's the one. She thinks the Jason Bateman character is the cool one, but then she realized by the end it's flipped. And
around.
I love it. Aaron Johnson, he says, there's a lot of Disney movies that I enjoy. What I would choose for talking Disney is Robin Hood, because it seems to compare to Lion King in terms of story. Robin and Marion's story is terrific. Hey, if you want to come on the Robin Hood episode talking Disney, then check out the Patreon link. But yeah, no, I can see that. I think that Robin has a lot more humor than Lion King. I mean, there is Timon and Pumbaa and everything, but yeah, that's an interesting comparison for sure.
Yeah, and on a bit of a related note, rest in peace to Olivia de Havilland, who was made Marion in The Adventures of Robin Hood from 1938, one of my all-time favorites and the absolute best adaptation of a Robin Hood movie we will ever get.
Yeah.
I think I talked about it on the first HBO Max episode of Hidden Gems. Like I want to do a long form review on my channel of it one day, but that day has not come yet. But it will one day, because that movie is just awesome.
Well, the next question is, what is your favorite music related movie? So I guess not necessarily a musical. It could be a biopic of whatever. I do love Walk the Line. It's one of my favorites. But I actually have in my top 15, I mean, Little Mermaid is one of my favorite. The music is amazing. Incredible. Howard Ashman, Alan Menken. The Wizard of Oz, I love.
That's a great one.
The Sound of Music, I love.
Well, that's I've got to watch that next for the AFI project.
Yeah.
I think that's, if my memory serves me right, that's underneath. That's underneath Doctor. No, wait. It's underneath Doctor Strangelove, and then after that is King Kong. So
It is admittedly too long. It does not need to be that long,
I
but
will acquiesce on that.
I still love it. I love it. You are 16 going on 7. It's so good. And then Mary Poppins, I have in my top 15. So there we go. What about you?
This is music-based films or musicals?
Music-based films is what it says.
Okay, so like one of my all-time favorite musicals, period, is Singing in the Rain. Like that movie is just wonderful.
Good one.
Let's see. In terms of like, let's throw a music biopic in there. Walk the Line. I think you mentioned that. I do genuinely love that movie, directed by James Mangold before he directed Logan and Ford v Ferrari, which is why I was so excited when he was selected to direct the Wolverine, because I was like, oh, that was the Walk the Line guy. And let's see what else. The producers, the adaptation of the most recent Broadway version of The Producers with Matthew Broderick and Nathan Lane is really good as well. And I had no exposure to The Producers. I didn't know about the Gene Wilder or Zero Mostel version or even the Broadway version. And I watched it one night. I'm like, wow, this is far funnier than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. No, Young Frankenstein I also love. I think that yeah. Yeah. To get a question, have you ever seen Avatar: The Last Airbender or its sequel, The Legend of Korra? And this is from Pikachu Cat, who does a bunch of editing for us. So thank you so much for doing that. It helps. It's a lifesaver. Have you seen those? Either of those?
Love both of those shows. Like I watched every episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender when it came out. Like it started in like summer of 05 and concluded summer of 07. I watched every episode when it came out on Nickelodeon, and I'm a Cartoon Network guy. So for me to go to anything related to Nickelodeon, it was like it was a near miracle. But my little heart was traumatized when the fall of Ba Sing Se happened, and I was actually on vacation with my dad in North Carolina when Sozin's Comet, the final battle, part 5 happened, and the final battle between Fire Lord Ozai and Aang, and it was all just wrapped up so perfectly. And so whenever, well, mostly because of the Shyamalan version was horrible, but whenever they do something new related to that, I'm just like, nope, like it can't compare to the original one. Like I haven't even touched any of the comics because I'm worried like it's gonna like undo the happy ending. And as far as Legend of Korra goes, I do enjoy that as well. They had a really unenviable task of following up following up The Last Airbender, which was just unbelievably good. And they damn near did it, and it was in many ways just as good as The Last Airbender.
So I actually haven't watched these shows because I don't watch television as much as I watch movies, but I have both of them, the full series, on DVDs. I've been needing to do it, so I will do it, and I'm sure I'll love it. So
watch it.
Yeah.
Do yourself a favor and watch it.
Yeah. So, all right. The next question, we'll just do a couple more, is favorite sci-fi film.
Ooh, that's a toughie.
And I think for me, I think I'd have to say, if you consider it, I mean, it is sci-fi. I guess I would have to say Back to the Future is my favorite.
That's a good one. I'd lump in part 2 and part 3 as well, but if you just want to keep the original, then that's fine by me.
And I don't know if Jurassic Park counts as sci-fi.
It's more of a monster movie than a sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
It's similar to movies like King Kong or Gojira or stuff like that, or like Rodan, or more than say Back to the Future.
And if some people consider Star Wars sci-fi, I don't. It's
I once heard
fantasy.
from one of my college professors that Star Wars was sci-fi and Star Trek was science fact. But
Yeah, I do love Wrath of Khan. And some of the other Star Trek films. I think it's called I forget the tagline, but the Star Trek 6 I think is actually underrated.
the Voyage Home.
Voyage Home, yeah. I think that was actually really good. I thought Christopher Plummer was really good in it as the villain, and
Christopher Plummer's good in anything he's in, really.
yeah, he
Even
elevates
Knives
it.
Out, which I wasn't a humongous fan of, he was the best part, and he had like
Mhm.
5 scenes.
I love the particularly Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I thought that was such a strong film. Um, let's see if there's anything else. It's not my favorite genre. I love Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
That's another good one.
Yeah, I love Inception.
Good one there.
I love the Avengers movies. Endgame, definitely the most qualify. I thought that was wonderful. See if there's anything else. Sci-fi in my top one. I'm looking at my top 100 ranking. Wall-E, I love, and Terminator 1 and 2. What about you? Any others?
So for some old ones, I love The Blob, starring Steve McQueen. Like that's, I love it more as it's a window into like the 1950s, but it's still got some very it's got some terrifying moments in there. The OG War of the Worlds from 1953, that still just holds up tremendously well. The original The Day the Earth Stood Still, not the Keanu Reeves one, but the original one, with Klaatu and Gort and spaceships that look like pie plates but upside down. Nostalgia. Let's see. I love Arrival from 2016. It's fairly
That's
recent.
my favorite Villeneuve.
Oh, really? That's interesting because that's like it's like Arrival in 2049, and they have like an elegant dance.
I think Arrival has way more heart to it than 2049. I
will
know 2049. Well, it still has that Blade Runner pacing. That's not my favorite. And I don't know. Maybe it's just because Arrival is more of a romance, so it's more my jam. But I don't know. I feel like it's more soulful than Blade Runner 2049. But it's a beautiful film.
The part when one of the aliens like goes like that when Amy Adams puts her hand up to the glass and she's like, "Now that's what I call an introduction." Like that part really gives me goosebumps.
Well, and her decision to still have her daughter, even when she knows what's going to happen, like there's something to that. I think
there's a lot to unpack there, and I think it's all worthwhile.
Mm-hmm. All right, we'll do this. Make this the last question. So, what is your favorite book adaptation for a film? And maybe we'll do the second half of this for next time. So I think that it's always the most impressive when you have a movie that improves upon the book, because people always say the book is better. Well, not always. So some examples, I think that Jurassic Park is better than the book. I think
I will attest to that.
Yeah. I think The Wizard of Oz is better than the book.
Mm-hmm.
I think Breakfast at Tiffany's is better than the book. I
have not read Breakfast at Tiffany's, so I'll have to take your word on that.
Yeah. I think that Sound of Music is far better than the book. The book
really that was based on a book. I had no idea.
It's based on the real Maria von Trapp's book, and I mean it was the book was taken and made into a musical on Broadway, and then they took the musical and then made it into a movie. But the book is a snooze. It is not good. It's boring. They made it way better. Mary Poppins, I mean, Peel Travers put a big stink on it, but I think the movie is far better than her very mediocre novels.
That's interesting,
in my opinion.
Well, some of them, some movies that I think improved on the books. One of them was Jaws, because in Jaws, spoiler alert for the book Jaws, Hooper dies. The shark eats him, and in the book, Hooper and Ellen Brody have an affair, and that was gratefully cut out of Jaws. Like Spielberg just was like, nope, we're not including that in there. And the Mayor Vaughn, actually kept the town open, not because of like, oh, it brings in the summer dollars, but because the mafia was forcing him to. So take from that what you will.
I think that the Princess Bride is better. That's controversial, but I don't know. I did not like the way they did the interruptions in the book compared to the way they did them in the movie. I just found him very smug in the book, and I much preferred the movie over the book. I also like the movie of Perks of Being a Wallflower better than the book. It's written, both of them are written by the same person, and the author actually directed the movie. Stephen Chbosky, I believe his name. Anyway, he directed it, so I think he kind of used it as his way of sort of improving upon the flaws of the book. The book's still fine, but I don't know. I just like the movie better.
Speaking of authors being involved in their own projects, here's one that I'll throw in that may be a bit of a hot take. The Godfather, the movie, I think is better than the book, because the Godfather book, while great, it also goes on a lot of tangents. Johnny Fontaine gets a lot more attention, which I think is really not that needed very much. There's other like stuff like that is like, when did the Corleones, like, when do we steer away from that? But Mario Puzo actually co-wrote the screenplay for part 1 and part 2 with Francis Ford Coppola. I'm not sure about part 3, so don't quote me on part 3. But I know definitely for part 1 and for part 2 that Mario Puzo was heavily involved in the screenwriting for that. And it was definitely an opportunity for him to like trim the fat and definitely make it a bit more streamlined and made the classic that we all know today.
Yeah, very, very true. Some others that I love, got your Lord of the Rings. I love Babe, which is an adaptation. I love 101 Dalmatians. That's based on a book. I love Far from the Maddening Crowd, which is based on a Thomas Hardy book. Same one did Tess, actually, which I actually think improved upon the book, even though that's a classic. I also love Pollyanna, which is based on a novel. So there's a lot of strong, as much as people say, oh, the book's always better.
Not exactly true. Another couple ones that I like are Silence of the Lambs, based on the Thomas Harris novel. There was one on the tip of my tongue, and The Chronicles of Narnia, that was based on the book by C.S. Lewis. And I love C.S. Lewis.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, they did a really good job with that. And it's always daunting when you have these, kind of really important books for childhood. Of course, there's been many effective comic book adaptations over the years, something like Civil War, for instance, which, it takes the core of the story and then changes it around and moves it around to work in the MCU. But that would be one. That you have the Dark Knight being heavily influenced by the Dark Knight Returns and some of those other comic books, and or something like V for Vendetta. Also,
I'd throw Watchmen into that pile. I know that there's some people that actively hate Watchmen. I've always loved it, and I think Zack Snyder did an excellent job of like taking the pages from the book and just throwing them onto the screen. Like, you can argue about the content all you want, but Snyder remained faithful, and that's something I'll always have respect for.
Yep. So there we go. I think we covered those questions. So we'll do the rest of them in our August live stream. So let us know what you think of all the different things that we talked about. Keep everything civil in the comment section, please. Even about Birds of Prey, please. I'd be grateful for that. And so Ryan, where can people find you?
You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at RyanCam20. Also, my YouTube channel, RyanCam's Movie Reviews. We're at 92 subscribers, and it's like I'm so close to triple digits.
Oh, come on, guys, get them to the 100.
I've got the AFI project going, like I've mentioned a few times in this stream. I just released my episode for High Noon yesterday, which that did surprisingly well in terms of numbers. Upcoming is going to be Apocalypse Now and All About Eve. I think it's All About Eve and then Apocalypse Now. But then I'm going to be covering stuff like Double Indemnity and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, like I also mentioned, and just a lot of stuff, like a lot of great content coming your way. I'm super, super proud of it.
Well, the Nerdy Brit says he's going to subscribe. He says, a great live, guys. So yes, go subscribe.
I feel like if the Nerdy Brit and I meet in person, we're going to do like the commando handshake, like Nerdy Brit, USOB.
Yeah, and y'all need to watch our episode of Hidden Gems this week where I turned Ryan into a giant Hallmark fan. So it's pretty exciting.
I'm one of y'all now.
Yes. And next week we're going to be doing Amazon Prime for our second episode of Amazon Prime Hidden Gems. So that's going to be really fun. And we're having a great time doing it. And so, yeah, let us know what you think, and you can find me here at Rachel's Reviews all over social media and on iTunes and here on YouTube. So please check that out. Also at the Hallmarkies podcast, we have posted today my interview with Cindy Busby, who is delightful and so fun. So if you want to check that out, we have another interview with Marcus Rosner on Monday. So a lot of fun content over there. And so definitely check that out. And so, yeah, this was really fun. We'll talk to you all later. Bye, everyone.
Bye.